this introduction to Zotero, brought to you by Graduate Student Services at the University of Texas at Austin's University Writing Center. My name is Jamie Garner, and I'm a graduate student consultant at the Writing Center. In this video today, I'll give you an overview of what Zotero is, where to get it, and some of its major functions, and then I'll talk about some tips and tricks for integrating Zotero into your workflow, as well as a couple of less well-known features that might be helpful to you. At the bottom of this video, in the notes, you'll see I've included a list of links and references that will also be helpful as you get started. So to begin, what is Zotero? And the simplest answer is that Zotero is a free reference manager put out by the Corporation for Digital Scholarship, a nonprofit that seeks to develop software for researchers and cultural heritage institutions. That explanation, however, sells this incredibly powerful tool short because it's so much more. It lets you do all kinds of things, all kinds of really cool it has all kinds of really cool functions that you can use to organize your research, organize projects, share bibliographies with friends, and even to very easily and efficiently capture your research. Briefly, I just want to show you real quick. Here is the Zotero website. You can find it at zotero.org. And you can download it for Mac, Windows, and Linux. This demonstration today will be on Mac, but depending on what kind of nerd you are, you can download it for any of these different platforms. And so this is what it looks like, and I'll show you more on my own personal Zotero as I walk you through some of the main functions. But once you've downloaded it, Zotero is going to look like this. So you can log into Zotero, and you can do many of these functions through the website. I think that downloading the app to your computer is a much more efficient way to go. But so let's begin by talking about some of the app's basic features. So when you first boot up your Zotero, once you download it, you'll have a different set of folders over here. I'll show you quickly how you can delete, rearrange, and change those very easily to suit your needs. But first, let's just talk about the kind of general layout. So Zotero is arranged into these three columns here. So one, this blue panel over here to the left, the center panel, and then this right panel. And essentially what happens is when you click on one of the panels on the left, the information is going to pop up in the next panel, and basically the information just gets deeper and deeper as you move through each panel. So what you have here is your library, which shows in this left panel, you've got your library, which shows everything that you have saved and cataloged. And then it also has, when you click on My Library, it'll show all of the tags that you have tagged to your work and to your research. And you'll see there are a number of folders over here. I'll talk about organizing your Zotero in just a few minutes, but you'll just see that, this is my own customized, this is my own customized kind of cataloging format. I've got a lot of different, categories and projects I'm juggling and working on at any given time. And you can customize this however you want by adding sub-collections. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But what you'll see are these right here are pretty standard in these. So you'll have My Library, and then you'll have My Publications, Duplicate Items, which shows where you have duplicated references, and then Unfiled Items, and then you've got Trash, which often just has to do with duplicated items and stuff that you've recently thrown away. In the center column, what we have here is when you click on one of your collections, one of these folders, whatever you have in that folder will pop up. And it really just depends on how you sort of organize things. I like to follow an alphabetical by author last name for my kind of main library. And so what you'll see when you click on it'll show a bibliography here. And then what you can do is you can click on one of these items, and once you click it in the center column, which shows you can rearrange this as you want by clicking on title and creator, much like you can just change whether it goes alphabetical by author or reverse alphabetical. You can see what you have attachments for. And once you click on one of these functions, or once you click on one of these references, it's going to take you over to this column on the right. And what this column does is this gives you all of the metadata, and this is the information that when you go to cite one of your sources, this is what it's going to pull from. And then you've got a couple other functions over here as well. You have notes, where you can just add notes. There's two kinds of notes. There's standalone notes, which are just sort of, they're not attached to a particular source. And then you have child notes, which are going to be attached to that source. Tags, you can see here that this is about John Milton's Areopagitica, so I just tagged it Areopagitica, just so anytime when I go to search, I'll be able to just pull up all the works that are about Areopagitica. And then what you can also do is you can relate sources to one another. So for instance, if I wanted to say like, okay, well, this is about Areopagitica, another way to like pull sources together, maybe, someone's responding to someone else's scholarship, you can add, and it's going to pull up everything in your bibliography, and you can link it to another source. So for instance, I know for a fact that Kalbrenner cites Nigel Smith's Areopagitica Voice and Context, so I could put that together, and what's going to happen is when I click this and I go to this related function, it's going to show anything that I've said is related to it. And so that's kind of how the three columns work together. So now you click on one, and it's going to give you more information in the column immediately to the right, and that information is going to get deeper and deeper as you go. Now, let's talk about the major functions here running along the top. So what you'll see here is this lets you add a sub-collection or add a new collection, and collections are basically just the folders where you're keeping your research. This lets you create a new library. So a new library is an entire collection of folders. You'll see libraries are saved to your Zotero page. You do get a certain amount of space with Zotero, so you're able to, if you want, you can buy more space depending on how much research you've saved. And so those are kind of the two major functions that are associated here with this left column. When you get into the right column, what you have are the really important ones here to take note of are new item. New item lets you manually add sources. You have this button here, this kind of magic wand, and what this does is you can grab the ISBN, the DOI, or some other identifier of the article, and you can just put it in right here, and it'll automatically add it to whatever folder you have highlighted. Here's the notes function, and you can create a standalone note that just goes into your library, or goes into the folder that you have selected, or you can do a child note, which is going to be attached to a particular source. Attaching files, you can attach links to URLs on websites. You can attach stored copies of files. I like to save my PDFs to my hard drive or to the Zotero page, and you can attach them from there. Or you can attach files. And then we have search function, and this is advanced search. This is very powerful. It has a number of parameters that you can kind of get in there and play with. If you want to search by titles, if you want to search according to tags, if you know that you're trying to respond to a conversation that happened in a particular publication, you could search that way. There's all sorts of options here. You have a few of these qualifiers here. You can say whether the title is this thing precisely, or whether it contains a certain word, or you can even do does not contain if you want to eliminate. And so the search function is very powerful. You also have a kind of quick search function up here, which lets you look in all fields and tags. It's a little less precise than this advanced search, but this is the one right here that I tend to use. And then the most important functions in this right column here, this button, so this will let you can click on a source, and then this will give you access to other ways of viewing that source, whether like if you have a PDF attached, you can go locate the file, or you can go look at it on Google Scholar or Crossref and some of these other places, and it'll just show you some other information that is like with Google Scholar you can see like who's cited it, and so there's a lot of sort of interplay between Zotero and some of these other sources. It works really well, especially with like Google Chrome and Firefox as well. And I'll talk about that in just a bit when we get into how you actually find a source. And then finally, this is the refresh button. This just syncs it with Zotero and keeps everything up to date on your Zotero website, which you can log into. And also, the useful thing about that is, say you're using like I use Zotero on my desktop, which we're recording from right now, but I also use it on my laptop. This refresh button is really important because if I go boot Zotero up on my laptop, I want to see the research that I've captured that I've captured from my desktop represented on my laptop. And so this is a nice way. Zotero is really cool because it's all saving to this website. You can access your research from, whatever devices that you use. Okay, so for our first major topic, let's talk about collecting references, where you get references from. And there are a few places you can go. If you want to add something manually, this is the way to do it. You just have to select the type of document it is, and then and there are lots of different possibilities for this. If you're citing a blog post, or if you want to cite a letter or correspondence, it's going to give you a template that you follow over here, and you'll just you'll just follow, fill in the information that you need for whatever citation, whatever reference system you're using. Now, I'm going to point out here, check out, why don't we show you how to do this real quick. So you could add a book, and what's going to happen is you're going to go add the book, and it's going to ask you for some information. I'll do one that I just kind of know, or I mostly know, I'll do this one that I have right here. So this is a writing guide. It's called Sin and Syntax by Constance Hale. So the title is Sin and Syntax. Constance, and then you would just grab the publication information, which you'll find on the first page, published in 1999 by Broadway Books. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that's probably in New York. Yeah, so it's New York. And this typically, like this amount of information right here, depending on how deep you want to go, you could go deeper. But for like MLA format or for Chicago format, this is typically enough to have a citation of the book. So you can add something manually like that. It's very easy. You can also do by ISBN. So I'm going to run over to Amazon real quick, and I'm going to look up that same book, and I'll show you. This is probably going to give some more information than what I just did manually, but that's okay. So let's grab the ISBN for Sin and Syntax. And so you can either grab the ISB 13 or the ISBN 10. I'm going to grab the 13. And you just come up to your magic wand, and then you would click there. And boom, it is now in the, so you can see there's a few things I missed. This was the first edition. It's got the ISBN there. You have all the Library of Congress information. And it's going to save the information there. Now, say if you have a duplicate, you can move it to the trash and delete it. But that's pretty much it as far as if you wanted to manually add one. Okay, now let's talk about, there's another way that you can add articles, and it's by using the Google Chrome extension. I'm going to go pull up this over here. And so let's grab William Kalbrenner's Plainly Partial, the Liberal Area of Pagitica that I talked about just a few minutes ago. And so what you would want to do, what you're going to see is if you go grab it's called the Zotero connector, and I'll have a link to it below. And it works with Chrome and Firefox. And what it's going to do is on your Google Chrome or your Firefox, it's going to create a little button here that lets you save to the site. And it gives you some information. It'll tell you, if you can save things to Zotero, and it'll tell you, if it has access to the site or not. I find it easiest you want to go all the way to the article. So we'll go in through JSTOR. I like to go download the PDF. And so here's the article, and what you're going to have here is, let's see, so you'll have this button here. You can save it to Zotero. It's going to save the PDF. And you'll see that it just saved another copy. You can see I did this one last summer sometime as well, but so there's the new one right there. And so now this has appeared, and there's our date showing when we accessed and saved it. And that is really the easiest way. And what you'll see is you've also got a copy of it that you can now pull up and that you can just look at and annotate. Now, there's another app called Zotfile that lets you, you can save your annotations and extract them. I'll put a link to that below. So these are some extra, so this and the Google Connector, these are some extra things you can do to make saving a little easier. And so that's it. Those are a few of the ways that you can add research to your Zotero. I'm going to just move this to the trash real quick. And, you know, depending on, it really just depends on your situation and what kind of access you have to the text that you're trying to save. You know, I tend to use the manual if it's, I write about a lot of older, you know, stuff. So sometimes you don't have access to, you know, a copy of the PDF that has metadata. It might just be basically, you know, a glorified image. And if that's, you know, your situation, then you really just need, you know, you just need a few pieces of information. But if you can get a newer one, or if it's a book, you know, I tend to use that quite a bit. But if it's a somewhat more recent PDF that's been uploaded fairly recently, most of the time it'll have that metadata. So all you have to do is go click that capture button if you have the Google, the Zotero connector installed, and it just pops it right into your Zotero and saves it. It's really great. So now that I've showed you how to create references from scratch and how to collect references, I'm going to show you how to attach documents to references. This is a really useful function. You'll see I've got one attached here, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll just delete, I'll move the item to the trash for now. And so I'm going to look at Thomas Cronidas's Polarity and Structure in Milton's Areopagitica. And why don't we attach, so you would right click on it, manage attach, or actually add attachment, sorry. And I'm going to add a copy of add a stored copy of the file because I know I have a copy of this. So I have everything keyed to this bibliography and library folder, just where I keep everything, where I just know that I have everything, you know, kind of saved and ready to go. Let's see, so there it is, that's the file, and it's as easy as just attaching it. And boom, there it is, and now it's attached. And what's going to happen is, whenever I click it, as long as that file is available in the folder where I attached it, as long as it stays there, I'll be able to, you know, just open it up and grab it right there. And so that's one of the really powerful functions of Zotero, is being able to just get to your research and get to, especially, you know, if you have, you're making annotations, you know, you can save the research item and that you can save your reference and save your notes, and you can open it from multiple places. And that's, you know, if you do like I do and you're sometimes working at home or you're sometimes, you know, working other places, it can be really useful to be able to just pull that document up. So let's talk a little bit now about organization. So I think that this is a quick point, but I think how you organize your Zotero really is going to be, it's a matter of personal preference. There's lots of different organization structures that you can use. I use several. I have, this sort of general bibliography, which has everything keyed according to, it's alphabetized, so I'll tend to put my sources, here they're going into that My Library, which shows everything in order, but I find it a little overwhelming, so it was easier for me personally just to make, just to do one folder for each letter of the alphabet and then organize it from there. But you can also do, for instance, I've got my dissertation and I have research, that keys to these different chapters here. Like I'll show you. So for instance, there's a section in this chapter, it's about prosopopoeia. And what I do is this isn't everything. This is most things that are tagged with this rhetorical figure prosopopoeia, and that's what they're about. And I have them here so that I can, quickly access them and know kind of where they are. And so how you organize is really up to you, but I think that the most important thing is to find an organizational structure that works for you and stick with it. So I've been using, this organizational structure with my Zotero for about 2 years now. And so I have like everything I've read over the last 2 years here. And once you figure out how a way to organize your references that best makes sense to you, that is going to be key to really having an efficient workflow with Zotero. Now, I would also recommend, thinking about, if there are other, organizing according to other projects that you're working on can be a really good way. And what I like about Zotero especially is, so it's all in the library. And then if you move one from here to one of these folders, it doesn't disappear from your library. It all stays in the same. You're always going to have everything that you own here in one place. But then you'll be able to, get back to it from one of these other folders as well. So you could have something in, you could have one reference if it somehow came up in all of your folders. You could have it in every folder, and it's always going to stay in that main library as well. So the key point I want you to take away is just that organizing your references is really important to having a strong workflow. So now that we've talked about organizing your references, let's wrap up by discussing how to cite a source and how to create a bibliography. So this is, these are two of the functions that you'll use most often. And so to cite a source is fairly easy as long as you've captured all of the information that you need about the source so that it all comes up. I'll grab one that I know is definitely correct and fully completed. Let's grab this one. So what you're going to do is, in order to add the source to a bibliography, and so there's a few, this is going to also kind of depend on what citation style you're using. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to use Chicago style because that's what I tend to use. And you'll see, so when you right-click on the source and you'll click here, Create Bibliography from Item, when it says Create Bibliography, you can create, depending on your citation style, you can create an in-text reference, you can create a bibliography reference depending on what you're using. And so for now, let me just show you this. So I'm going to open up a new document here. And I'll show you. So say if I wanted to make a note, like a footnote, you can either do it as the full note or just a shortened note. I'll just show you for the footnote. So I would simply have my output mode set to notes, and then I would push OK. So I'll push OK. And you want to also have, depending on what you're doing with it, have copy to clipboard if you want to copy and paste it, for instance. You've got some other functions. The ones that I tend to use the most are just this copy to clipboard. And for a basic demonstration, I think that's the way to go. And so what you would do is hit OK, and that's going to save it to your clipboard, which is where things go when you copy and paste. So say here is a footnote. You might insert the note, and what's going to happen is, so here it's going to create where the footnote goes, and I'm going to push Control V, or you can do paste, and the note appears as it should with all of the information. And you're free to, so for Chicago, if I was going to do a page number, page 306, and boom, there is my citation of that book. Now, if you wanted to, you can also do that with shortened citations for Chicago. If you wanted to make a bibliography, that's a slightly more complex, but still fairly easy to do. So what you would do is you would make a folder, make a collection over here. Like, we could make a bibliography out of this entire thing. I think that would be probably a little too much. But what you can do is you can make a collection, make a new collection, and I'll just show you this with one that I already have ready to go here. So what you can do is you can either, as I showed you, you can make a bibliography just for one source, or you can grab one of your folders, create bibliography from collection, and when you do this, you're going to want to, instead of doing notes, you're going to do bibliography, because the citation format's always a little different, and hit OK. And same thing as before. Look at our blank page. Paste. And then what you'll have to do, so, you'll have to be on the lookout for a couple things. You can take care of this in Zotero itself. So for instance, this one here is going to need some more information. This one here is going to need to be adjusted, the citation. Some of you'll want to double check it against your citation style. So, for Chicago style, for instance, you'd want to put the word bibliography at the top, and then you'd have to double space between each individual entry. But otherwise, this bibliography, other than checking over some finer details, this is pretty much done and formatted to Chicago style. So that's, just a couple of, things that, hopefully this overview has given you a good idea of what kinds of things you can do with Zotero, and some of the, just some ways to get started with using it. Tree itself. And this is something to also keep in mind. It's not a perfect tool. It doesn't, it's not going, if you say you have too much information for your citation style, like MLA requires sometimes less information or more sometimes than Chicago. Depending on your citation style, you might be lacking information that you need, or you might have just way too much information. So being aware of that when you go to make a bibliography and when you go to set it up is important. So that's it for this introduction to Zotero, and we hope you've picked up some tips and tricks along the way to help you get started. In the future, the Graduate Student Services has a number of videos on a number of topics coming, and make sure you subscribe to our new YouTube channel, as well as follow us through our listserv and check out our social media. You can also make an appointment for the Writing Center today at uwc.utexas.edu. I'll put a link to that down in the notes. And thank you for watching, and we hope this was helpful.